Are you ready?
Yeah.
Bear in mind, guys, I want you all to check the time because this will come out tomorrow, I'm assuming, right? This was released on the 1st of July. Yes, we did release it when all the news for the day had come out. So spoiler, my good point, shout out Kassad, is obviously HooXi. It's been benched by G2. And when we say benched, it's like KD Bieber. That just means kicked out the team, guys. The term benched is even almost a bit sinister there. It's like, because in a sports context, he can come back for he's just done, right? It's over. Like, as far as we know, this basically means goodbye HooXi. And at this point, it's just a question of how long does it take him to get out and go somewhere else, right? So as far as we know, HooXi's done. Now, at the moment, at the time of recording, and actually, based on what I've heard, I don't think it's going to be immediately. No announcement yet of who the replacement is. And I will add in as well, everyone did sort of see this coming. Like, what's funny is this is one of those times where even people who actually, I don't know if behind the scenes they did know the move, I think a lot of people just accurately analysed the scene, who like coaches and analysts, and accurately guessed. The Malbs move alone clearly wasn't a role-for-role swap that was supposed to make a complete team, even if, by the way, you took Nico's IGL, because even then it'd be like, well, then what the fuck is HooXi's role? You know what I mean? So, to me, these moves were probably done at the same time and agreed as part of a coherent plan for G2 to change the team. And even though we don't know yet officially who the next player coming in is, obviously the part of the move is to bring in another player who may or may not be the IGL. So, this is pretty big news. Obviously, it's kind of also a capper to the narrative that's been on all these talk shows for like, what? I mean, to be fair, it was around like, if we go back far enough, it was even when in 2022 we had all these topics. Obviously, famously, it's when he like won the Blast World thing that it really got spicy, wasn't it? It's when the topic blew up, and then Richard carried it for a long time, and Kassad did it for a long time. If you notice, one thing people always do with me is they always, for some reason, conflict me with Richard and Kassad on this. But if you ever watch this show, we've got like a record. What I always did was, I was always the guy who said, like, look, in a perfect world, I'd replace him immediately. But if you win like Katowice, I give you a little bit more time. That earns you a few more events. Yeah, it earns you a chance to prove yourself. Like, in fact, the obvious thing is, if he ever had have won a major, I never would have called for him to be fired. I would say, okay, how can I complain? You get it done. Even if you have the super players, you are winning the tournament. So I think if you just look at the scene right now, it's the case I've made all year long, which is people simultaneously want to say, if you say cut HooXi, but what about all those tournaments? But then at the same time, you go, keep JKS, and they go, it's not in the form of when they won that tournament, that though. You're like, what? You can't do both. Like, if it has to apply like that, it has to apply to HooXi too. So all I would say is, sadly, it actually is probably true what I was joking about before. Fucking Stewie 2K winning that tournament probably has got this guy kicked from his job, because if you could rationalise before that, you know, but who could you get? It's still good. And then the joke is, you were like, Nico was like, I'll just have a go. I chilling. Oh, I tripped over and fucking won the tournament. What the hell's this? This trophy? Like, we haven't got any of these this year. Yeah, I'm sorry, HooXi. It really was just done for you at that moment. It's why, actually, a point, I'll give you one last little point I'll throw in there. A point we didn't actually roast Stewie 2K for on the Richard episode, Maui, that I actually did think was mad BM, even though he didn't mean it to be BM in his, like, rant, was, you know, there's that point where he said something like that he didn't understand why HooXi was so, like, publicly involved in, like, cheering them on and, like, behind the scenes doing analysis for them, because essentially he, like, potentially helped them win, right? And it made it look worse for him. All I would say in that scenario, this is why I actually wish I'd mentioned it on the Stewie episode, is like, Stewie, you actually sound like a cunt, mate, because what you're saying, and remember, we all know this did happen when you were in Evil Geniuses. Do you remember in Evil Geniuses when it was like a pro league or something, Maui? And he made some stupid public statement like, why would you even try on the last game? We were already out, even though if you know how Pro League works, like sometimes your last result still affects like someone else or whatever. So it was like and it was an insanely entitled statement, because here's why you try, Stewie. You get paid like 30k a month, you fucking rat. Like, that's why you fucking try. You don't go, I don't deem this game to be worth me trying, so I'll just be phoning it in. Can I please have the 30k? So anyway, the point I would say to bring it all the way back is, I actually think that is, as much as it might seem like a meme that HooXi sort of threw the assist to get himself kicked out of a team by helping the team win an event he wasn't at, and therefore all the narrative, I'm going to spin it the other way. I actually say props to HooXi for that. That actually makes me admire him more, mate. The idea that if he isn't at the event, he could have done the opposite. He could have done what U2K probably wants, which is like, if I'm not there, fuck them. Let them fail without me so they'll know they need me. I'm definitely not going to help them. In fact, if anything, I want them to see that I'm necessary. You need me in the team. If he really didn't do that, and he really did like essentially be like a remote analyst, then mad props to HooXi. And he actually might have played some minor role in helping them win that tournament. I've heard, by the way, he just called Nico did just call his playbook. It wasn't just all like off the dome from Nico. So I think even though it's rough, the circumstances that if you're HooXi, you never really got another chance, because even that other lad, remember the Blast, started with, we didn't even know if Morrissey was going to be there. So that was a fucking mess CS2, you didn't even really get a chance to redeem yourself, did you? But I just think if you look at the totality of his time in G2 when it became CS2, I just don't think it was good enough. And as I always said, it's not even that you have to think HooXi wasn't good enough. If your argument is his style has to be loose to accommodate that, well, then they didn't have good enough players for him either. So unless you could upgrade and get mega superstar team, I think eventually he had to be moved. So that's why I put it as a good. Even though for HooXi it's bad, I think for G2 this is a good move. I think it's the right move for everyone except HooXi. Thoughts, Start?
Yeah, this is definitely a good move for G2, but for HooXi, like his fragging abilities and like if you look at his numbers, they're like all red, and it's a difference between him and Kerrigan in the sense like when you're watching HooXi play, he doesn't get those impactful frags like Kerrigan. Like Kerrigan has like these timings that he always takes, like going through smokes, and like HooXi, like he's always been a liability. A lot of people say, "Oh, it's G2 are playing 4v5," but so that's a good move for G2 to get rid of him. I'm not sure where they go on from here. I don't know if Nico's IGLing, they pick up an IGL, and then for HooXi, maybe he goes to like TSM. I know they're building a Danish team over there. So overall, good move for G2. What do you think, Maui?
This is, I wanted to start by also saying something similar to what Thorin did, is that I think everybody kind of misses the timeline or just kind of fudges it for when all of us separately, Kassad, Richard, you, me, said anything we said about HooXi. I actually was one of the people that was very publicly for HooXi, because if people remember back in 2022 before the move happened, there was the rumors that were circulating were, do G2 pick up HooXi or do they pick up Alex from Vitality? And I actually was one of the people that was saying I want them to get HooXi, because when he was calling for Copenhagen Flames, he was able to play selfless roles, which I knew that he would have to if he played for G2. He would play anchor positions, which he would have to for G2. And Alex, even though Alex is a better overall player, he might even have been a better overall caller, some of the ways that Alex called felt a little bit more micromanaging to me. And HooXi actually always had a loose style when he was calling. And I remember, for example, Yabby just he was off the chain. He was off the leash when he was playing with Copenhagen Flames, because HooXi was calling and just let him kind of do whatever he wanted every single round. And I knew, like, HooXi's not micromanaging this guy. He's like, Yabby isn't lurking into apps, peeking into the A bomb site on Inferno, getting one quick headshot, backing up because HooXi's mind controlling him to do that. Right. But I knew HooXi, with those kind of pieces, would allow that sort of style in his gameplay. And so there's a lot of things before I really get into it, because we have been just kind of railing HooXi for such a long time. And this almost in a weird way feels like a eulogy. It kind of feels like he's never going to have an opportunity with players this good ever again in his career. Yeah. If he does, he's probably building that team up himself. And so it's going to be kind of like a Cadian situation where it's like, okay, is it HooXi? Is it the system? Is it the players who are now really good? And so I just want to say, like, HooXi did such a great job of making Inferno look so manageable at the highest level of play, because so many in-game leaders in the past, and I even want to reference, say, like Kerrigan in 2018 when he was choking that E-League Boston Major Finals, he was like, he's just doing too much. He was like, taking bracket control, taking banana control, maybe going back to A, and it's like, you really never needed to do that. And I think HooXi showed all of us that all you really need to do on this map is just use a world-class banana taker like Nico, and then exec B. Like, what are they going to do? What are they actually going to do if you do that? And so there were certain concepts and certain little plays and styles and tactics that HooXi opened our eyes up to. But beyond that, he clearly had an expiration date as a player. He clearly wasn't up to snuff when it came to his individual ability. And so even bringing someone who's just like a modicum of individual skill better in Stewie 2K, who's just barely better at looking at his radar when he's running in on an entry route and saying, okay, I should pause for like 3 seconds. Let me pause for a half second. Let Nico get closer to me so he can trade me. We all saw, oh my God, okay, you can win tournaments. That's all it took. That was the key. The style of calling was so simplistic that Nico was able to emulate it when he became the in-game leader. And all you needed was a guy that was just a barely better entry fragger, barely better sight angle, and then you could win trophies. Yeah, I'm glad that G2 finally opened their eyes to the reality, which is that you could have put a lot of different people into this position, and you could have had HooXi in the backlines as a tactician. And that is, I think, the most natural pivot for him that he could possibly go for here, which is that if he's able to game plan with G2, if he's able, like, sure, he's benched as a player right now, But I've been calling for Taz as a coach because I don't know what value he's been bringing to the team.
Right.
He's probably getting better. He's probably getting a little bit better. But if HooXi just pivoted into the coach role, if Taz maybe got transfer listed or became like an analyst or an assistant coach, whatever, I feel like Taz's personality and what he brings is like his aura is too big to necessarily be an assistant coach. I would like to see him have another gig, but I know that, hey, this is a winning formula basically. Have HooXi as somebody that's giving the game plans day to day, have Nico as an in-game leader, have a better entry fragger. You have that, it's Mobs, and then just get one different anchor. I would have liked Heavy God in the past, but it doesn't really matter to me. You can practically get anybody at this point, and it would be substantial in terms of upgrading versus Nexa versus HooXi. And I think G2 is going to start sailing. Like I really think that they have so much potential now because like maybe numbers be damned. Like you really could go out and say Monacy's the best player in CS2. You could say it's Donk, but it's one or the other. It's 1A, 1B, and to have the best player in the world, have another world-class player in Nico, and have another guy who we know can really show up, but just needs the right situation in Hunter. I just need I just need the fourth and fifth player on that roster to not just be dragging them, like to just be absolutely dragging them, creating like a huge losing condition game to game. And if G2 can find those upgrades, which they have already in Mobs, and then I don't know who the fifth is necessarily, then this team is seriously cooking, and they will actually be competitors for that S tier and to be winning titles every single time. Because for this entire year, for the first 6 months, it never felt like we could in any seriousness say G2 is a favorite to win this tournament, or G2 is a favorite to win this match. Like, and that's why when I pivoted away from this team was the World Finals last year, when Na'Vi was a team of just like, okay, they're playing better tactics than G2. I'm going to take this team over G2. That's when it started to feel bad. When I knew that the firepower was clearly on the side of G2, but the tactics weren't actually helping them out for the last 7 months. And now finally, we might just, maybe the tactics don't improve, but the players will, and then G2 can start actually hoisting some more trophies, not via a fluky Stewie run.
I have a question for you, Nat. Do you want to jump in on that, by the way? If you get a point off.
Oh, no, go ahead.
Right, the question goes like this. So obviously you do have to separate the two lineups. The one he had in CSGO that he won all the tournament swords with JKS, and it was CSGO. Obviously the version with Nexa is CS2, so it's a different game. But I will say there's two angles I have to this. One is in CSGO, I think the problem HooXi had was he had such big names that when stars frag, you tend to just think of the star, not the person who called the strat or put them in the situation. So if Nico frags, if Monacy frags, everyone just thinks they're really good players. They don't think, was it a great strat? If JKS wins a clutch, you don't think, how did they get into that situation? Then in CS2, I will actually say, despite all the criticism, I mean, this was famously one of Maniac's hot takes. Maniac actually said he thought the T side of G2 was a top 3 T side in the world. He actually gave mad props to HooXi in that sense. So my question to you, Nat, would be, when you're going through demos to find clips or smoke lineups or whatever, were you impressed with the HooXi style? Did you think he had something to his calling? Was he doing some interesting material that you were using? What would you say?
G2, it was one of my favorite teams to watch. Like,
right.
Easily top 5. Like, I don't know if it was behind HooXi or somebody else, but they had a lot of like set pieces, both on both sides, T and CT sides, as well as, like you said, set utility. So I don't know if HooXi was the main creator of that, but I also know in a sense, like when I'm watching these demos, all these pro teams are copying one another.
Right.
So G2, like, some of these plays I've watched, like they're copying like all these other teams. So that was the case there.
Yes. Okay. Right. Let's move on then. What is your bad point, Nat?
Oh, can we go back real quick?
Yeah, if you want.
To talk about G2. So, who do you guys think is going to be like the fifth? Like, do you think Nico's going to take over as IGL?
I'll say this. I'll answer first, because what I'll say is this. Actually, before this news was announced, when they did announce just Malbs joining, I even thought to myself, maybe they're not actually doing a move right now. Maybe it's actually a way to give Nico sort of a pressure-free chance to test being an IGL. Maybe what you do is you sign Malbs, because if people don't know, like, I would probably put Malbs in some of the spots Nico actually plays currently. So I would have said maybe Nico becomes sort of like a bit like he was back in the day, a bit of a lurker, and he becomes the IGL, and he sort of tests himself out. And then maybe you even use that period to decide either one, can can Nico be IGL? Do we need an IGL? Or two, if he is IGL, do we need a different player for the fifth? Like, I thought you might even for real just keep HooXi and just run him as like just another player. Because by the way, from his style of play and his personality, I'm almost certain he would be a soldier too, just do anything you ask him to do. Like, that's one of the things that's actually harsh about having to criticize him, right? As a person, he actually seems fairly cool. He's watching one of the more, despite all the beef for him and Kazan, he actually does seem like one of the more reasonable pro players, guys. Like, I don't think he's actually some insane delusional figure, like sat in a hotel room, like, it's all me, HooXi is the king, and they also, he's just done some of that stuff to banter Kazan, because Kazan did it on camera himself. But I do think that, like, the problem is, I can only judge you based on, like, your success in the game. I can't judge how cool you are as a person. Like, that can't be a factor. But I actually think he would I don't think he would sabotage the team if you made him be, like, just a role player and he wasn't the IGL, for example. So I wondered, actually, initially, when only the Malbs signing was announced, like, is this the idea of, like, you've got a stopgap period like Nico, right? We're going to basically give you 3 months, see how it goes, then we'll make a decision. Also, behind the scenes, people have seen the rumours. There's maybe a rumour Nico and Morrissey leave. So again, maybe we're just seeing who wants what, who goes where. So now they've done this move, though. I mean, this move's, the player replacing him hasn't been done yet, but spoiler, that means it's obviously coming pretty soon. It's clear that they have got a roster set. They're going to run with this roster. So with the way it's going right now, my assumption is whoever they're signing is going to be the IGL. That's what I'm guessing at this point. So I feel like it's not just another player and they swap over, but that's just a guess. What are your thoughts, Maui?
I mean, I would personally prefer that they just have Nico as the in-game leader now, and I would want them to just sign a really strong anchor player. And it's kind of weird, I guess.
Obviously, listen, the problem is, to name a big name, it's hard to know if they can leave a team. So, like, what's like a plausible one you think they could have signed? If you could pick, like, assuming, like, you could do a little bit of a buy, you obviously can't go and take, like, someone from FaZe or something, but if we're doing, like, a reasonable signing, what would have been, like, the sort of tier of player you'd be willing to do for that?
I mean, the best would be Magisk, probably.
Okay.
So
I mean, there is that rumor that
cool.
maybe Falcons are making change. So if they went for someone like that, you'd love that move?
Yeah, Magisk for HooXi spots would be fantastic.
Okay.
It'd be so good. I mean, that's why I was so high on the Heavy God stuff too. I mean, like, well, hey, Heavy God's not confirmed for Cloud9.
That's
Let's
true.
Just say that. So I'm still saying him. It feels really strange to also say like JKS when they clearly didn't.
Because it'd be like a meme for him to come back on some level true. It'd actually be a good signing, though. Surely it'd work, you know.
Yeah, the thing is, he's right there. He's available.
Why not?
Also, like, I don't know. I don't even know if he's technically bench or a free agent at this point.
I think he went officially as a free agent a few months ago. I think just a few months ago they just announced it randomly one day that he was a free agent or whatever.
Okay, that's good to know.
Which is why I believe it's implied that, because remember, Chad's always the one that the info comes through. I believe it's implied, like before he joined G2, that he's doing that thing again where he just sits and hopes he gets like a really fucking sick squad out of nowhere. So as far as I know, it might actually be JKS's fault he's not in a team if people don't know. Like, as far as I know, I think he actually could have been in the Fanatics of the world, you know, like, I think the joke is he doesn't want to be though. So I think he's doing his old JKS move again, but whatever. He is available as far as I know. And I'm assuming he'd say yes to this team, you know, to just guess.
Yeah, they probably would take him. Yeah, I mean, other than that, I just feel like there's too many like superstar anchors that I just don't think they would budge from their rosters. Yeah, like you're not going to get Caserado or something like that.
No,
what about Perfecto?
Oh,
that's a spicy one.
It's interesting, but nothing has indicated to me that Perfecto has strong competency in English. Like he does his interviews in Russian. They get translated to English. Even the most recent interview that they had on HLTV, I've been told, was just completely conducted in Russian.
Right.
And sometimes they would even have a guy that would speak, like, I've heard of this also for Perfecto, that he will hear the question in English and he has a Russian translator next to him, not to actually say the question to him in Russian, but then Perfecto will answer. He'll hear the English, answer in Russian, and then the Russian translator will make it English again. So it's like he can kind of get it, but he can't like necessarily verbalize himself quick enough.
Yeah,
so
I didn't know his English was not that good.
No,
so
right,
otherwise, that would have been my pick. I think he fits well.
Oh, this is a spicy pick. Yeah, I'd love to try.
Role wise, it's great. Role wise and strength of player, it's great.
Yeah.
Sure. I also think, by the way, I actually do not think that move will happen. I think it's a very low likelihood. I also think the reason why, if you could make it work language-wise, the reason why that move would be bigger is because there's another player that's not going to demand resources. Like, if anything, you get to have all your stars still. They can all still be the stars. Like, you just slot this guy in. I feel like he just do his job. So I don't even hate that as a move. Yeah. See more cool, funny, interesting clips based on topics from my content? Well, subscribe to this channel then, or, be a pleb and don't.